So with the recent proposed performance points rebalance on OC standard, and in this rebalance, it would make maps with higher object count but inconsistent difficulty worth less performance points than a map with lower object count but more consistent in difficulty. To put it simply, this would nerf the meta of the game right now, which is the speed meta, where maps that are usually worth more are the longer types of maps with diff spikes and usually with a higher object count. Now this is funny to me because I've been here since 2020. Back then, speed was actually not a meta. It was more of the aim type of maps. This rework or this rebalance is just changing it back to that meta. Now, with all of these, I actually thought to myself, hey, didn't I see a video by Etienne, who is also a popular rhythm game YouTuber, 2 years ago? And he actually pointed out two good points. Now, to understand his points properly, we need to go back to 2020. And during 2020, there was one standout player named Eterna. And Eterna was the first one to actually push the tapping speed over like the usual 270 BPM of what top players are used to. He pushed this so far to the point where his skill set was so unique, to the point where he was able to set scores like Kai, TT, 1 miss, and he was also able to 3-mod Ascension to Heaven, which back then was unheard of. And due to this very unique skill set and very high skill ceiling, there was a performance points rebalance back then as well, which buffed this said skill set by Eterna by a lot actually. And yeah, back then nobody really questioned it except for Etienne. On Etienne's video, he brought up a discussion of whether Eterna is actually breaking the PP system because of this rebalance, and if his scores are actually as good as we think, because he was the only player back then who were pushing the skill set. Yes, there might be some other players, but not to the extent Eterna was pushing it. And over the past couple of years, we did figure out that yes, he was actually correct, because when higher BPM tapping speed actually became accessible as a meta, as a way to gain ranks, we saw a lot of people train their technique and utilize their tapping to be able to hone through this skill set. And we did figure out, like 2 years later, yes, it was a very broken skill set in terms of gaining performance points compared to the aim meta that we had for 7 years. And players here and there started farming the higher BPM tapping skill cap speed scores, and we saw crazy numbers, specifically from a person named Akolibed, whose gameplay is what you're seeing in the background right now. And he pushed the speed skill set to a whole new level, breaking 2 PP barriers, mainly the 1.5k PP barrier and the 1.7k PP barrier, basically skipping 2 milestones in a span of 1 week. That made a lot of people think, hey, this is kinda stupid, this is broken. There was an outrage on Twitter, even with flow aim players saying, yeah, flow aim and high BPM is kinda broken. It's just crazy to think that Etienne got this 2 years ago. Although it wasn't purely accurate, because what caused this was inconsistent diff spikes combined with the higher BPM. So yeah, with all that being said, we are now waiting for a performance points rebalance that will hopefully get closer to evening out the playing field between aimed players and tapping players. So I guess the main takeaway for this is when a new player rises up with a unique skill set and sets seemingly impossible to grasp scores, we shouldn't automatically assume that hey, that skill set's underweighted and we should buff it. We should probably wait for other players to match the same skill set so it can be judged properly, because I feel like with speed, we just got kind of stunned of what one player could do, then it automatically got buffed and became the meta. So yeah, maybe we should wait for other players to get to that same level of skill set, because there can be players that would grind that skill set often but wouldn't really get to the same degree of that person's caliber who is breaking like the limits. And yeah, we should probably wait for that before making any judgments of whether it is overweighted or underweighted, because we can't really get an accurate measurement of how to weigh something, especially with OSU. It's so broad, there's like so many factors, and it is especially harder when we have one person in the top 10 back then to be able to use as reference point to whether the skill set is overweighted or not, and then create a rework for it. Well yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. It's just very interesting to me that Etienne actually got this on point 2 years ago, and back then I actually kind of questioned it myself. I kind of just went on reading in the comments and discussions, and yeah, it turns out he had a point there, and now it's just actually happening. Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's all I wanted to say. Also, as a side note, please make hard rock precision meta again. All of the precision maps right now are so underweighted, lol. And yeah, okay, yeah, goodbye.